Hi everybody, in today's video we're going to do the laziest of the lazy forms of budgeting, the humble pen and paper way. So no fancy apps, no complicated charts, we're going back to basics. Let's start. In case you're new here, I'm Marta. I'm a Polish turned British designer living in London, and this channel is my personal finance and good life playground. Welcome. If you watched my first video in this series, you'll be familiar with the process. So first, we'll take a look at my full of hope and expectations projected expenses for the previous month. So today it will be for February 2021. Then we briefly touch on my banking and PomPoms setup. And finally, we're facing the music and looking at the actual expenses for that month. So the whole budgeting cycle in one video so that nobody wastes anybody's time. Now, as you know, I do have my budgeting form, which I really like and it works for me. But I also think that sometimes there's possibly too much focus on the tools when it comes to budgeting. You really don't need much. And if your excuse is not being tech savvy or not enjoying dealing with spreadsheets, then you need to understand that budgeting has more to do with your behavior than a setup. So in February, I googled simple budgeting form and got many free printable results. And then I thought, actually, there are quite a few people who don't own a printer, or a driver to a printer, or a driver and a printer. You know what I mean. And so I took a piece of paper, one that has squares on it and lines to make it extra easy and convenient for me, a pencil, and I wanted to be fancy, a ruler. And then I created this form. As you can see, it's far from fancy or perfect, but that's the whole point. We have the usual sections and my PomPoms sections. In case you don't know what these are, here's a friendly reminder. Most of you or some of you are probably familiar with the term sinking funds, right? So was I. But I really had a problem with that name. Sinking funds are essentially savings. And to save money, it takes some discipline and takes some motivation. I'm pretty sure it does for you. It does definitely for me. It requires a certain vision. But every time I think about sinking funds, the only vision I have in my mind is from this famous painting. And this is tragic. This is not motivating at all. I mean, who came up with this name? And so, for my sake and fun, I decided that my savings will not be called sinking funds. They will be called PomPoms. It's just much more motivating for me to think about PomPoms than sinking funds when I think about my savings. POM stands for peace of mind times 2, because essentially these savings give me exactly that. So this form can be created without a ruler, because we do have lines on the piece of paper. We're not after form here, but function, 100%. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to make it. So let's complete step 1, my projected expenses. This is the step I usually complete at the end of a month or at the beginning of new month, depending on how much money I think I'm still going to spend. If I know there will be no transactions coming out of my bank accounts, then I close the month. And if I still know that there will be some more, maybe I'll wait for the first or the second of the next month. So here we go. The income section, as before, is what I'm prepared to spend every month. Even this amount includes some savings, but generally it's after tax, after savings and investments and charity donations. I'm self-employed, so it's my decision to pay myself this much. It might change in the future, but for now, this is it. These are the expenses I expected in February. They grouped as fixed essentials, variable essentials, and optional lifestyle. The last two are most likely to be like stock markets, fluctuate. You might have noticed that there are no bills on this budget. That's because Adam moved in and we agreed that he'd be paying for groceries and bills and I will be paying for mortgage. So these are much lower this month. Now let's take a look at my variable essentials. Because we're in lockdown at the moment, the variable essentials are pretty low, of course, too. And again, I knew the exact amount I'd spent on toiletries as I checked the price on the day of budgeting and completed my shopping list. Like I said in my previous budget video, I usually use shopping lists so that I know what I run out of and then I just purchase it on the day. Well, the optional lifestyle expenses are a bit higher this month, but that's because I include PomPoms in this section. I don't know about you, but I have this tendency to not spend enough, and if I have some money left over, I usually invest it. So as a way of making sure I don't invest all of my spare money, I save it into PomPoms, some of which are pretty fun ones. The holiday one is shared with Adam. As you can see on the left, I put these amounts in a separate section as they need to be added to the previous month once and then looked at again by the end of this month. So I'm still saving for a course and I bought some books. In case you wonder what books, here they are. A Random Walk Down Wall Street, Having and Being Had, Take the Stairs, and the Fran Lebowitz Reader. So far I've read these two and I'm in the middle of reading these. A friend of mine has this interesting way of judging if the book is worth reading. He usually just reads the first paragraph and then decides. So I'm going to do it now. Let's read one paragraph of each. So first, Take the Stairs. The last time you came up to a set of stairs and an escalator, did you take the stairs? If you're like 95% of the world, then you probably didn't. Most people don't. Most of the time we look for shortcuts. We all want to be successful and we all want to have a happy life, but we constantly look for the easy way. We look for the escalator in hopes that life will be easier. Unfortunately, in our search for making things easier, we are actually making them worse. That's one. Having and Being Had. We're on our way home from a furniture store. Again. What does it say about capitalism? John asks. That we have money and we want to spend it, but we can't find anything worth buying. We almost bought something called a credenza, but then John opened the drawers and discovered that it wasn't made to last. I think there are limits, I say, to what mass production can produce. We just bought a house, but we don't have furniture yet. We've been eating on our back stoop for 3 months. Last week, a Mexican woman with 4 children rang our doorbell and asked if our front room was for rent. I'm sorry, I said awkwardly, we live here. She was confused, but she said, it's empty. A Random Walk Down Wall Street. In this book, I will take you on a random walk down Wall Street, providing a guided tour of the complex world of finance and practical advice on investment opportunities and strategies. Many people say that the individual investor has scarcely a chance today against Wall Street's professionals. They point to professional investment strategies using complex derivative instruments and high-frequency trading. They read news reports of accounting fraud, mammoth takeovers, and the activities of well-financed hedge funds. This complexity suggests that there is no longer any room for the individual investor in today's markets. Nothing could be further from the truth. You can do as well as the experts, perhaps even better. It was the steady investors who kept their heads when the stock market tanked in March 2009, and then saw the value of their holdings eventually recover and continue to produce attractive returns. And many of the pros lost their shares in 2008 buying derivative securities they failed to understand, as well as during the early 2000s, when they overloaded their portfolios with overpriced tech stocks. And finally, the Fran Lebowitz Reader. I don't know if you've seen her in the Martin Scorsese's series on Netflix called Pretend It's a City. It's excellent, watch it. 12:35 p.m. The phone rings. I am not amused. This is not my favorite way to wake up. My favorite way to wake up is to have a certain French movie star whisper to me softly at 2:30 in the afternoon that if I want to get to Sweden in time to pick up my Nobel Prize for literature, I had better ring for breakfast. This occurs rather less often than one might wish. Which one would you pick? If you're keen to read any of those, I'll leave the links in the description of this video. Alright, so we've done our expenses and now bridge. What happens with this money? All the fixed essentials, all 2 of them now, are set up as direct debits or standing orders coming out of my Santander 123 Lite account because I get cash back on most bills. All my other essentials are pretty much paid for with my Amex card to get cash back again. I leave the required sum in my personal Monzo account and then I pay it off at the end of the month. Trading 212 is a top-up, so goes to Trading 212 app. And purchases like shopping, again, Amex and personal loans. PomPoms are being held in my Santander account too. So here's my current banking setup. It could change at some point, but this is what it looks like for now. No changes in here. Also in my reasoning behind it, so if you're curious about it, you can see my previous budgeting video about why I have this setup. We're through with the projecting, and now it's time to have a reality check and see what I actually spent in the month of February. This part is the most time-consuming one. It takes about half an hour every month, and what I do is I go through all my transactions in my banking apps, then I add up different categories and I record them on that form. Here they are. Fixed expenses, no change. Variable essentials, we have one addition, toilet. I went for a walk with a friend of mine and we needed the toilet and it cost us £1 each. And I said I just can't wait to put this in my next budgeting video. So now you know how expensive peeing can get in London. All in all, variable essentials cost me less than I thought they would. Optional lifestyle, on the other hand, cost me more. Lots of PomPoms here, but also some clothes, one t-shirt for All the Honey's comment of the month. I also had to catch up with Adam's overinvesting on Trading 212, and I bought some Bitcoin. To me, Bitcoin is like tulip mania in the 17th century, so I won't be investing in it, but I did buy some. My PomPoms at the end of the month looked almost the same. One exception is the gift category, as we had Valentine's, of course. So I was left with a bit over £70, which is a good buffer. No going over the budget in February, which is always good news. So this is it. This was my budget for February. Now, what did I like about this pen and paper method and what I didn't like? I actually liked more than I thought I would. Any excuses that anybody could have when it comes to budgeting, like I said, not being tech savvy, not enjoying spreadsheets, it's just solved by this simple method. I really, really like the fact that you actually have projected and actual expenses in one place. For some bizarre reason, it never occurred to me to keep them in one place. This is something I will definitely take and improve my own budgeting form with. You live and you learn. All in all, the pen and paper method is not actually a method, it's just two objects used for somebody who, for whatever reason, does not want to use a computer to plan their spending. I loved that there was no screen involved. Some people, for whatever reason, don't want to use technology to do their budgeting. It does not matter what your reasoning could be. Maybe you're tired of the technology, maybe you don't want to have too much screen time, maybe you don't want to keep record of anything to do with money online unless you really have to. Or maybe you simply enjoy using your hands and having something tactile to deal with. Whatever your reasons, I think this method, no method, is really, really good for that. Possible drawbacks of this method, I was trying to think of any, and I thought that I really love throwing away documents that are out of date or I don't need to hold on to. And if I created all these budgeting forms, after a while they will get on my nerves and get on my square meters. So I would probably get tired of this. I thought about it for a while and then I realized that budgeting is a living form, and like any living form, it has to pass away too. So I'm pretty sure there is a stage in your life when you're so confident in your spending and you don't need to track expenses and you don't need to do your spending plans, that you actually can let go of those forms too. Alright guys, so this is the least demanding and the least complicated budgeting method there is. It really does have more advantages than disadvantages. And if you haven't started budgeting and you think the whole process is too complex, I honestly suggest give it a go and you might be pleasantly surprised. I'll be doing my budgeting for March using another method, so watch out for that one. As always, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.